morning, everyone. I'm here with, the POTUS of programming?
Sure.
Matt Helland, programmer
What's
for
happening?
millions of people worldwide, all day,
worldwide.
every day.
It's like
Welcome.
Prestige worldwide.
Prestige worldwide. Dun, 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 dun.
Ready for number 50? It's the 50th podcast.
I know. I can't believe that. You told me that before, and I didn't believe it. I was like, it's not 50 times.
50 times you sat in this room.
The big 50. Well, I'm glad and I'm pumped about our topic today. It's cool to be able to share with the world, and I enjoy sitting down with you, obviously, and having these conversations.
Thanks for having me in. It's fun.
Yeah, man. It's awesome. So happy 50, Matt.
50.
We should have, it's like 9 o'clock in the morning we're recording this. Otherwise, we'd crack open something other than this sparkling caffeinated ice water. I need a sponsorship from these mofos, by the way. I don't know who makes this. I need to find out which company this is, but I'm going to be looking for something. So if you're listening to this and you make this, I need some sponsorship money.
Probably
so
on there. You just
hit
can't
me up.
read it.
Yeah. It's not only the 50th podcast, it's my 50th year on this earth. That has something to do with why I can't read the mice type on this freaking can. All that being said, you guys, we're going to talk about today, Matt, the two types of fitness business owners.
Mm-hmm.
And the two types are the owner-operator and the investor. And we'll talk a little bit about the pros and cons of each. I think the thing I want everyone to take away from this today is that there's no right or wrong. There's no, there's advantages and challenges to either, right? And I think it's important for you then to decide what is it that you want to do. Like, what's a day in the life of look like for you? And that's going to decide what type of, fitness business owner that you want to be.
All right.
It's a cool business. The optics of it are fun. I think everyone agrees. Certainly, as we look at it through the Alloy franchise lens, it's a bit easier to sell a concept for something that's cool. I mean, sure, you can make a lot of money in junk removal or in, septic tank cleaning or whatever, but those aren't things that maybe at a cocktail party sound like that much fun, right? And you could argue that, I'm helping people out because I'm removing their junk, but I mean, in fitness business, you really feel like you're making an impact in people's lives, and that's really powerful. So I think for either type of owner-operator, or investor, it's a cool business to be in. And so I think that's what draws people to it. There's also the financial side. You can make a lot of money in fitness. There's a lot of attractive things about the way fitness is structured, with the revenue model being reoccurring as opposed to just point of sale. You run a burger shop, got to keep selling burgers every single day, right? For us, it's like you sign somebody up and they stay 3 years at $279 a month. I mean, the lifetime value of a customer here is really high.
Right.
So the optics of it outside in look really good. But I think it's really important to think, who do you want to be as an owner, right? What type of owner do you want to be? So let's start with the first one, which is the owner operator. And this is the one that this was me early on. I did not have a lot of capital. I borrowed some money from a client, or we partnered up, and it lasted maybe a year, and then I bought them out. But, it was just a passion that I had, and it was something that I wanted to continue to do. I was paying my way through school, so it was like, good paying job.
So describe the owner-operator a little bit more. I mean, that's the person that is in the business every day.
Yep. So this is your old adage of working in the business, not on the business.
Yes.
And you can do a little bit of both. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think if you're an owner-operator, you have to spend a little time on the business as well.
Sure.
And if you're an investor, you have to spend a little time in the business as well, right? A little bit of both, a little bit.
Starting out, for sure, the owner-operator is in the thick of it, probably.
They are. And so, absolutely. And so we'll talk about the pros and cons of each. So the owner-operator is typically someone who's a technician first, through the lens of like the E-Myth, right? Michael Gerber talks about the technician. And the technician is the person who's really good at what they do. And they're maybe tired of putting up with the BS of the club that they work for or the people they work with or whatever. And they simply want to take their business and move it from here to here. They want to be their own boss, but it's really because they want to do their technical mojo, cool stuff unencumbered.
Yep.
And that's usually the main driver, right? Is I want to get right to my end customers. I don't want anything else in the way. And I want to be able to do what I do and just enjoy it every day. Now, so that the pros would be that obviously there you can be a lot more profitable in your business if you sit in some of those seats in the business.
Yeah.
So in the Alloy franchise structure, there is a position, an interchangeable term, general manager / director of training. And I like director of training, consumer facing. Honestly, it just sounds like you're going to meet a coach.
Mm-hmm.
That person is the one that's performance-based paid, and they draw a salary as well. It's the logical position for an owner-operator to be in, where you're basically first point of contact with all new clients, meaning you're doing the selling, and you're the head coach for the whole gym, meaning you're holding people accountable and you're driving retention. And you're in the gym all day, every day. And so you can really drive culture, right?
Yep.
So the advantages are if you run a really tight ship in a really good business, you can make a really good margin as an owner-operator.
Yes.
Right? And you have ultimate control. And another advantage I think that people forget about is the fact that you get, from a selfish standpoint, you get to see the tangible results of the work that you're doing, right? It would be like being a custom furniture craftsman. It's like you go out there and you chisel something out, and you stand there and you're like, I built that, right? And there's some real satisfaction in that. Very similar when you're working in a gym, and I've had it both ways. And so I can certainly understand both types of owners. When you are an owner-operator, you get to stand right in front of the customers and see the results. You get to see the person that is in tears because they lost weight that they haven't been able to lose. The person that's been able to accomplish, a hike with their friends or something that they never could do before. So in a selfish way, it's very fulfilling to be the owner-operator.
Sure. Well, especially on a fitness, if you're buying a fitness franchise, you're probably really into working out and want to help people. So, that would make sense.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, I'll tell you this, as a franchise, we looked at both of these owners before we went into this, because you have to decide who your core customer is going to be. And what we figured out pretty early on was that if the business model makes sense and you can make money in it, which you have to even, don't start a franchise if that model doesn't make money, then we would be able to serve both types. So if you're an owner operator and you want to work in that gym every day, good on you. And you're going to be able to sit in a seat. Now you're going to earn more money, but you're also going to have to work more, right? You're going to earn that money by being in one of those positions, absorbing that expense, if you will, and then taking it personally. Also the investor type, can you make money if you never want to be in your business? And the answer is yes. And for us as a franchise, it was like, well, if we can't appeal to both types of operators, then we'll probably struggle to scale over time, because if you're just selling to owner operators, you're going to struggle. It's going to be one at a time, right? And you're going to struggle to sell a territory or what have you. And so I think to have a successful franchise, you really need to be able to appeal to both. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. That's what led to this conversation, is like, well, these are the two types of people. We already have both. We just got out of the gate. We already have both types of franchisees. And I think there's going to be advantages and disadvantages to both. So,
well, just from a owner operator standpoint, building your own brick and mortar and doing all that, a definite pro is doing it with a franchise, especially, Alloy Personal Training franchise, where we give you all the business systems. So it really is less times in the weeds and more times doing that personal touch and doing what you're saying, getting the results with your clients and stuff, if that's really what you're into.
Yeah, 100%. And great point, because typically the technician lacks the business skills. That's what we've seen. And so if you could take on a partner, which at the end of the day, a franchise is a true partnership. If you could take on a partner that could shortcut and give you all the business systems that have already been worked out, that's a massive shortcut for you, and well worth it. Well worth the time to say like, oh, I don't have to learn marketing and all of these things at that deeper level. There's going to be a massive shortcut built for me. Great, I'll buy that shortcut, right?
Well, that's what most fitness professionals probably screw up, right? They're like, everybody, I want to, I like working out with clients. I want to, have my own business. But once they get in there, they don't understand all those other parts. So.
Right. And they, and we've done so much coaching with both really good, scalable, companies at a real high level, as well as in the weeds with studios that have 1 to 2 employees, right? And you're right. Typically, and this isn't always true, but typically those 1 to 2 owner studios, don't have a great grasp on their numbers. They don't, and they avoid them in some cases, right? Because it's like, well, I'm not really good at this, so I'm just going to put my head in the sand. I'm paying my bills, so I'm good to go. Well, that's where, having a partner that forces you to look at KPIs and numbers and, what's your build out cost per square foot? What's your revenue per square foot? When should you scale? Should you hire someone or not? You shouldn't hide behind the busyness of your everyday role in the business and not, but you need a partner for that.
Well, I let them be who they really are. If they're really good, coach or whatever, let them shine, take all that other stress away from them. That's kind of where we're here, and we're going to help guide you away and then help you grow. It's a win-win.
Yep. So what other positives do you think, Matt, there would be for an individual business owner?
For
like
an individual?
owner-operator? Yep.
Well, it's like you kind of mentioned already, you make more money out of the gate, out of your business, right? Because you're not paying a manager, which we'll talk about, as an investor.
Yep. I mean, you're really, in some ways, and this is something you need to be cognizant of, is you're buying a job in a lot of ways. So you better love that freaking job. And if you do, it's amazing because you're now working for yourself, right? And you've got a strong system, in our case, powering you, supporting you, giving you a platform to stand on to work your magic. But the fact is you've got that job. So it better be a job that you like. But you're right. Because of that, as we mentioned before, you can make more money and you can make a quicker return on your investment because you're not paying other people to do that, right? What about cons for individual owners?
Well, you kind of mentioned it. I mean, you're kind of stuck in the trenches. So it kind of takes you away. You're not really to look at growing your business. You might be more in the everydays, which can be a con if you don't get out.
Right. Well, it's true. And I think, Michael Gerber, again, to go back to the E-Myth. Now, mind you, in the E-Myth, if you haven't read it, you guys, I highly recommend it for every entrepreneur, the E-Myth Revisited. The book is sort of based on a story of a lady with a custom pie shop. But it uses a lot of references to McDonald's. And I think if you look at McDonald's as an example, what is it, largest franchise in the world? And there's some beauty in the fact that you can get a very similar hamburger in Shanghai, China, as you can in Atlanta, Georgia on the same day, right? Maybe a different sauce or something, but for the most part, but it's not very people driven. If you look at it, right? You put the burger in, you hit the button. I mean, that's not a real people intensive business. Whereas what we do is very people intensive, right? But you still need a systematic approach. And one thing that Michael Gerber says that I always laugh about technicians moving into their own business with no systems is like, if you don't have a systematic approach to what you're doing and like no systems, you've bought yourself a job. And it's the worst job in the world because you're working now for an absolute maniac, which is you, right? Which I think is a hilarious way to put it. And I've seen that, right? So some people are maybe not that good in that setting. And so you have to have some systems in place, even if you're the mom and pop owner operator. And I think if you pick the right seat in the business and you're willing to scale and understand that you have to have, employees and you have to spend a little marketing money to make money, you can scale to the point where you can be active in your business without being completely buried in your business, right? Where you don't have to sit in the seat of director of training and personal trainer and front desk, right? I mean, you really need, or admin, you really need to understand the systematic way to scale. And even if you choose then, you don't have to, but if you choose to be in the business every day, it feels much better than if you have to, because these common things, I can't find good employees. It's like, that's not true, right? They're out there, right? And so you do run the risk if you're sitting in too many seats and you're there 60, 70 hours a week, you're going to burn out. And so you still need a little bit of systematic approach on the back end. But the cons would be that you're so much in the weeds and so much time in the business that you never have a chance to step back and look at the overall big picture.
Yeah.
And here's what I'll tell you. That's not, if you bought an Alloy franchise, and I know we're self-promoting, but it is my podcast after all. So, but at the same time, if you bought that and you had some systems, what we often find is the owner operator, they buy it, they sit in a seat, they dig in really hard, right? And then they learn like, oh, well, this is cool. Like a lot of these things that I would have had to create it or come up with on my own are being handled by my partner, which is the master franchise. So it's like, oh, well, that light bulb comes on, and then that owner operator then decides like, well, I think I could open another one of these. All I would have to do is hire a director of training, and that's a well-defined position in this system.
Right.
So that I could move to another location, right? And I could leverage some of my revenue here, and I could go and borrow some money, get another SBA loan, and open another location. Wow, and if I had 3 or 4, now that I've sat in the seat of one of these roles, all I have to do is coach those people in that role, and then they coach the coaches. Right. And so we've found that a lot of small owner operators that understand how to scale, that light bulb comes on, and they start to realize, wow, maybe I could be a multi-club operator, right? So sometimes you make that transition. Yeah. Now, again, you can, doesn't mean that you have to. So in a lot of cases, people will say, well, I don't want to do that. Like, I selfishly love owning the best gym in the neighborhood. We're busy, we're making great money. I'm making, 6-figure, money out of this small studio. High 6 figures in some cases. If you're killing it, then this is all I want to do. I want to go in. I want to see my people every day. It's so fulfilling. I love it. Can't imagine doing anything but visiting with my community every day. That's a healthy owner and a really good place to be. But that should be by choice, not by circumstance.
Yeah, you don't work yourself into that. But I mean, a definite pro, which you're basically saying, is a good owner operator like that knows all the functions of the business and has just learned. So the business will run very smoothly because they know everything that's going on, right?
Yes.
So that's definitely a pro.
Yep, for sure. I mean, think about it. It's hard to beat. Like, we've got a guy down the street from us who's a pretty good operator. And I did some consulting with him. So when he opened like a mile away, I was kind of salty about it. But I thought about it. I'm like, well, that's cool. He had gotten into a tight situation with a bigger organization that he'd gotten, and he had to do something. So he opened up his own place right down the street. He and his wife are like in there all the time. They're hard to beat, right? They're a good place because it's like, who better than a whole family involved in a business that's it. There's no, you've burned the ships. There's no falling back on your wife's job or the husband's job, this is it. We have to make this work. And they're hard to beat. The owner operators are tough to beat. So,
and they're opening up, I think they opened up a second location.
I think so. Yeah. They were thinking about it, but I think it was like right around this COVID time, but
damn COVID.
Screwing everybody up. I know. But those models are attractive for that. It's just that you have to be resigned to work. You're going to be a fitness person. Basically, you're going to work in there all the time. So again, pluses of the independent operator, more revenue if you're willing to sit in one of those seats and you get your hands on the business every day. The cons might be burnout and the fact that, you basically bought yourself a job. So you better enjoy it, and you better enjoy the people that are around it, and you better be able to get out of your own way and follow some systems, right? Or you won't even be able to take a vacation.
Yeah.
Ever.
All right, cool. What about the investor, or you call them absentee owner?
Yeah. So the advantage of the investor, they're going to spend a little more capital, right? Because they're going to have a manager in that seat from the start. But the great thing is, if you're buying into a franchise or you're buying into a systematic approach, you are, it's an investment. So this is truly, the absentee owner is an investor. So if you look at, stock market's been going crazy, right? Or it's actually been surprisingly holding up well, based on the fact that the whole world's on fire. The stock market's like, that's weird. Well, I heard it was like a mood ring for like rich people, right? Which makes sense. Hell, I'm in the market too, so I shouldn't even say that, but you know what I mean, right? So, but everyone, if they have enough financial wherewithal, is looking for a good investment. And if you look at something like fitness, there's a lot of money, a lot of private equity money, because it's a great investment opportunity. So investors are typically going to look at this, and they're going to want probably a bigger return on investment. And the way to get a bigger return on investment is to buy into a concept where you can do, 3, 5, 10 locations, maybe more. And then your real entrepreneur spirit goes into building the management team and the execution of the systems that you're buying. But you're not necessarily out there recreating the wheel. You're just grabbing someone else's concept, partnering with them in a franchise, paying them a little bit. And then you're going to just, hire people and hold their feet to the fire. And then again, the real magic's going to come in how you manage expectations and getting people to run the play well. So I would say the big advantage is that you can do multiple locations, because if you are this person who is investing, you're either investing it as a family member or like a friend, and maybe they're the owner operator, and you're going to get a return on your investment over time. Or if you're a true investor, you're like, hey, I want to buy the investor we've had, Richard, like I want to buy the Charlotte market as an example, right? It's like, all right, well, I'm going to do 6 locations in Charlotte. If I can get my revenues to blank, right, based on our pro forma, then I know if I've got good local management structure in place, I'm going to get a higher multiple on my investment than I would if I was invested in Matt's gym or Rick's gym.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so that's the advantage certainly of a multi-club operator is there's a bigger investment opportunity, or I'm sorry, return on investment opportunity on the back end, right?
It's more of an end game kind of plan, right?
There's more of an end game, and there's typically a time frame around that, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas the owner operator might say, I'm so happy, I want to do this forever, right? Which might be unrealistic, but maybe not. It's just like you bought a job, you love that job, you're making great money, and you get to see the fruits of your labor every day. Check. Investor, I look at an opportunity, I run the high level demographic, I put it where it's supposed to go. I find the right operating partners in my business. Maybe I give them some skin in the game, right? And we're going to make a run at this thing for 5 to 7 years, and then we're going to sell. And what is our opportunity to make money? How can we sell this thing? Because any investment type of entrepreneur is looking for return on that investment. And that's normally going to be in the way of selling.
Right.
And we've seen it where really strong franchises might be in an area and they might have purchased, say, North Texas as an example, right? Or maybe North Dallas or Dallas and Houston. And they have, say, 13 franchises built out and the unit economics of each franchise is doing really well.
Right.
And they also have maybe 4 or 5 more territories that they're developed. And typically, if you guys don't know this, if you buy into a franchise and you buy a multi-development territory, you have a time frame to develop those. And so if you have an investor that starts at the ground level, they find some operating partners, or they just build a good management structure, they prove it out, they've got 12, 13 units making good, revenue and net profit, and then they have the ability to develop more territories, that particular franchisee, and as we've seen, will get a really high multiple on their profits when they sell, sometimes a 10x, and just to give you guys an idea, a mom and pop gym would be lucky to get 3 times multiple.
And it's way harder to sell.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like, who wants to buy someone's mad science project, right? No one. And so any buyer that comes in, unless they also want to buy a job, which is not usual, and if it is, it's not going to be a high dollar person that wants to do that, right? Then you're not going to be appealing. So, a lot of the independent gyms we work with, like it's an end all be all. And there's a lot of ways to exit a business. You can just sock money away until you just get old and you don't want to do it anymore. And then you just sell it or, sell it to employees for, not that much money or whatever. But if you're really the true investor types who want to make an investment in something that's growing, that's popular, that can get them that 5 to 7 multiple in 5 to 7 years, ideally. And so the big advantage there is that you can scale if you're in the investor type, and you're going to get a much higher multiple on the back end, right? So it's going to allow you to do multi-units if you're not working in the business every day.
Just high level, get to manage it, looking more at numbers.
Yep, exactly.
I would say the kind of talked earlier is the cons was really you have to be have a high business acumen to be this kind of person.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge. And you touched on that earlier with the challenge for the technician that ends up being the owner operator is it's typically if you're really good at training and coaching and motivating clients, you might not have spent a lot of time in your life working on your overall business acumen. So, the con, I think, is more of a con for us, which is to find those people, right? Like we bring in a guy like our partner in Charlotte, the guy's got great real estate experience already. He's really smart at scaling a business. As for those of you guys that don't know, and you should be doing this in an individual model, in a franchise, we provide a pro forma, and we're not allowed necessarily to fill it out for people. Per franchise law, you can't even hint that someone might be successful, which is crazy. But I'm kind of poking fun at the top-down heavy structure of franchising. But if we give it to a guy like our investor in Charlotte, he backs his way into the exact business model in 2 seconds in the pro forma, right? He's got very high business acumen. Yep. So it's very easy to discuss concepts. I would say that currently, based on how that we're structured and how attractive the financial proposition looks, it's easy for us to sell to investors. Yeah. Because they go, oh, okay. I mean, here's the return on my investment. If I did 5 of these, here's where I'm going to be. Here's what I can expect to sell for as a multiple. Okay, good. I'm off and running, right? Whereas the individual fitness pro, as an example, they have to buy into what you do and how you do it. And sometimes it boils down to funny in the weeds things like, how do you do your kettlebell swings? It's like, completely different conversation, right? So you're right. It's a con in the sense that, it can be tougher to find those people. But I think for us, at least so far, that's not even been a con because that type of individual is more attracted to something that looks really good from a business number standpoint, as we do. So I think the only challenge, and we should say probably challenge instead of cons, because like there's ups and downs. There's an inherent risk in opening a business and being an entrepreneur. It's an investment. It's a gamble. It's an educated, investment and gamble, but it's still a gamble at the end of the day. You got to make it work, right?
Sure.
I would say the biggest challenge is the fact that you are detached from the business somewhat, and you are going to need some entrepreneurial and leadership skills to build a team. So say you have 5 locations. In those 5 locations, you have a regional, like an overall regional manager. And then each club has a director of training, right? That is coached by the regional manager. Well, you're going to need to really lean into books like Traction and these books on how to communicate, who has what job responsibilities, things like that. I've got buddies in the industry that do that, and they're amazing. And they don't sweat so much like the workouts or all those things. I mean, they put a lot of juice into customer experience, and they put a lot of juice into building their team and building a strong team. And I can tell you, when you get to the boardroom table to sell, that's going to be really important. We've got a friend that does mergers and acquisitions in fitness, and he said, I can't tell you how many times that, $30 million, $50 million deals have fallen through because there's not a strong management structure in place. And it's like, nobody wants to come in and buy your mess or buy your problems.
Sure.
They want to come in and buy something that the day the transaction happens, the very next day, it's business as usual, right? And so I don't think that's necessarily a con as much as it is just the profile of the different owner. And again, you guys, we'll probably leave you with that, right? I mean, that makes sense. Like you can either be an investor type in fitness and the numbers make sense, which is why there's so much money looking at fitness, or you can be an owner operator. And I don't think either one is wrong. I think that's why we set it up for both, because we know that we've got a pretty decent profile in the industry. We're going to get some owner operators that are going to find a client who's willing to back them, and they're going to open the gym, and they're going to be really good because we're going to give them all the business help they need. We also have a lot of folks in the private equity sector that we know that have invested in other concepts who are going to come in and they're going to want to scale and do 5 to 7 locations. Well, it works for that as well. So there's pluses and minuses to both. I think the most important thing for listeners today is to decide who are you going to be before you go into it. Because if you don't have a lot of capital and you're struggling to get the first one open and you expect to never set foot in there ever, right? You're probably a little bit blind to that reality because you're going to need some staying power, right? Yep. And you're going to need staff up a bit more than you would if you were in there. And if you're the investor type, I think you also need to learn a little bit about what you're selling. You have to understand that fitness, that coaches are, intrinsically motivated, and that the things that maybe you do in your high level financial world don't always cross over to heart first individuals that are coaching people out on the floor. So there's a little bit of learning on both. But again, that's why you would buy into a franchise. I think this whole thing's turned into franchise sales, but that's why we started a franchise, right?
Yeah, damn right.
Yeah, well, exactly. But that's why we started it, so that we could appeal to both. And we have worked in so many organizations with big gym, organizations that have private equity, and we understand what those people need and what they want. And we've worked with so many, again, individual studios that have owner operators. We know what the pain spots are for that person. And we really wanted to build something that could accommodate both. And I think we've done a good job. So the challenge is for you guys that are listening, who are you going to be, and understanding the realities of what the challenges are and the upsides of that structure of ownership. Cool. But that's the way we see it. And I mean, that's in the mom and pops, all the way through to the, Anytime Fitness world and the big, monster organizations like that. So yeah, check us out, alloyfranchise.com. If you have any questions about this, on what type of owner that you want to be or who you are, you can hit us up. We're all over social media.
Yeah, man.
Let us know. But happy 50th, Matt. Appreciate you, man.
Happy 50th.
All right. See ya.
Thank you.